Welcome to another episode of Metal Mastermind. Co-founder and co-host Jason Stallworth, and also co-founder and co-host
Ken Candelas. Here we are.
I say the Ken Candelas like he's like his own entity over there, you know.
You are the Jason Stallworth, if I may.
Yes, and all you guys are the coolest, absolute coolest metal musicians in the world, and we appreciate each and every one of you for being a part of Metal Mastermind. So thank you guys. We're gonna go kind of with a heartfelt thing again, kind of like last week's episode, and I hope this helps you guys. We hope that everything we put out here, you know, presents value to your life as a musician, and also allow that to filter into other areas. But today we're going to talk about something extremely important, and that's creating your own path, finding what works best for you. And we're also going to talk about enjoying the process, how important that is. You know, Ken, have you ever wanted to do something? You're like, man, I really want to be this, or I want to do this, but then you get into it and you find that you're just not really enjoying the process. You know, it's like,
Yeah, totally. Oddly enough, it was one of the reasons why I recentered my focus on being an artist. So, my journey has kind of taken me through all different fields of audio engineering, and after thinking that I wanted to be like a full-time engineer at a studio for a while, I realized I actually have no interest in working for anybody else but myself. And so I said, I think I just want to work on my art. And that was actually an arduous journey. But it actually was very, very enjoyable when I look back at it. It was worth the time spent on exploring what was possible in the field. It gave me work for me to live and eat off of. So I'm very grateful for that. And it led me to where I am now with an immense skill set to be able to create my dream project, Homeric.
but you're ultimately like, you know, screw the man. I don't want to work for someone else.
That's the most metal thing ever.
It really is. No, and guys, by no means are we saying, hey, go quit your job, and because it's not in everybody's not everybody's ambition is to work for themselves. That's totally fine. I strongly believe if there's not something that you want to start or do on your own, and you want to work for a company doing something you enjoy doing and giving value, and it's a place that you can at least halfway believe in what they're doing and feel good about supporting, I think that's just as rewarding as working for yourself. Working for yourself is, you know, it's for some people, it's not for some. I work, you know, it seems like 24/7. Can you work a lot too? I work much more now than I did in my corporate days. But no, we want to talk about creating your own path. You know, a lot of times you'll hear this from people on YouTube and on podcasts like you're listening to Ken and I now, the social media, you know, influencers or whatever you call them. You'll hear them say things like, well, this is the way, this is the proper diet or nutrition plan, or this is the way to hold your guitar, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know, there's a lot of people that seem to be zealots. They're like, well, this works, so it must work for everybody. And what I found over the years, because I've followed different paths, you know, just simple stuff like how to hold your pick and whatever, you know. But at the end of the day, you have to realize that just because someone said this and just because they're a proclaimed expert, or even if they are an actual expert, even if they have the credentials to back up their expertise and their opinion, that way that they present still may not work best for you. So you really have to kind of, you know, chew up the meat and spit out the bones per se, and find those little nuances, those little caveats, and those little intricacies within that process, the big picture, that really work for you. You know, you can't always listen to someone else and go by that. And I don't know, I think people just become obsessed with a very specific way of doing things, and they kind of push it on everybody else, right?
Yeah, well, I think it's kind of comes back to this conversation that we've had for quite a while on what it takes to create your own sound, right? That's kind of been our tag for a bit. And the whole idea about that, though, is it's not immediately obvious, right? It's something that develops over time. It requires a maturity in your process. So maybe for some folks, it's, you know, it's just kind of like if you relate it to music, you're learning guitar, you've got your, you know, guitar heroes that you're trying to aspire to be, and you learn their licks, you learn their songs, then you branch out and then you start learning other people's stuff, right? And then you start developing a wider palette of, you know, technique, and this all becomes, you know, forming what's going to be your sound. And I think for others in who are, especially who are earlier in life, right? You know, you're talking like anyone who's in their teens, growing into their early 20s, they're going to be very much impressionable, right? So they're going to look for guidance in a way that might help them, and they'll try this one thing and they're told that this is how they should do things, and they realize, oh, that's not working out. And, you know, they may have to go through a bit of trouble to find out that it wasn't the path for them, or, you know, they find out something over here that works better for them, or they find their own way eventually. I feel like that's something that gets missed with that conversation, because sometimes you're looking for an answer, and really the answer is not so much what they're saying, but it's actually a process to discover for yourself by maybe attempting to try their way.
Yeah,
You know, it's kind of like you accidentally find your path, in a sense, if that makes, you know, any
Oh, it
sort
makes
of
perfect sense. No, it makes perfect, because I tell my guitar players that on my channel, man. I'm like, okay, I'm going to show you how. Instead of saying, well, this is how to do it or how you should do it, I
Right.
say, this is how I do it. And I usually make the disclaimer that it may or may not work for you. And this is truth in many facets of life. Of course, you know, this one way may not work for everyone. It probably won't work for everyone, number one. But secondly, I'm like, my hope is that if it doesn't work for you the way it works for me, that, like you just said, Ken, it will help you find out what works best for you. So you're doing it one way, that's not working. I show you my way, that doesn't quite work either. But somewhere between those two, you're like, you know what? I discovered a way that works really cool. And sometimes it's an unorthodox way of doing things.
Yep.
And people will say, well, you're doing it wrong, right? You know, because everybody's an expert these days. But, you know, the thing is, if it works for you, don't ever let someone tell you, or don't accept anyone telling you that you're doing it the wrong way, if that's the way that truly works for you, you know.
Right.
And I think it's important to learn new things, to maybe try different things, but there are some ways, like how I hold my guitar pick. Well, that's never going to change. I've tried every other way, you know, the two first fingers and my thumb. That just works for me, and that's just a very like simple simple example, you know.
Well,
But also, yeah, go ahead.
that attributes to your confidence too, right? Because
Sure.
you're if you're being told that something is not the right way, but you're confident that it is
Yeah.
working for you, that makes it a little bit easier for you to say, well, you really don't know what you're talking about, because you've you know, you've got your own way, I've got mine, right? And
Right.
that's okay. But you know, it building up that assurance of knowing that what you have going on is the right path for you takes some confidence to have that mentality, right? And so you may need to explore a part of yourself that maybe challenges you to grow in that manner, if it's going to be something that's going to benefit you. You know, different types of routines or methodologies of approaching a situation, you know, all about the how, right? Not necessarily the what or the why. You know, those things could always be stuff that you always have with you as a tool set in your arsenal for life. But how you approach situations is also very, very important. And I feel like that lends credence to that. So, but you were about to say something and I just cut you off. So
Dude, you
let me
know,
go.
my memory sucks, man. So I don't remember what I was gonna say now, but that's okay. No, but no, I just, you know, you see a trend though, Ken. All right, and all of you listening, you see the trend of people just saying this is because they're usually trying to sell you on their product or service, and I get it. You know, we market too. We want you to buy our courses. So, but even in our songwriting course, Ken, you know, we approach that as, we're not telling you how to write a song. We're not saying we're the expert songwriters. our goal is to just get you started on this journey and give you the tools and give you some creative ways to come up with new ideas and really just bring out the creativity that you already have. So our thing is, we're not showing you how to write a song. I mean, it's kind of how, because we talk about the structure and we go through the whole, process here in our course. Quick plug, Metal Songwriters Forge. I know some of you have that. A lot of you have that course, and thank you for all the comments on how much that's helped you. But if you go to metalmastermind.com and go to our courses and find Metal Songwriters Forge, great course that Ken and I put together. But again, it's just to help you conjure up new ideas and bring out your own creativity and allow that to grow, versus, well, this is how you're supposed to write a song, right? There is none of that.
Right. Yeah, no, I think in a very classical way, traditional courses on songwriting are they're very difficult for everybody to absorb, because somebody takes a little bit more away from it than somebody else. And if you get too hung up on things like theory, then that can lead somebody astray too, and maybe they're not really focused on the right thing. So that's why, we separated the music theory course from Metal Songwriters Forge, honestly, because actually, if you didn't know, Metal Songwriters Forge initially had a whole music theory booklet dedicated to Metal Songwriters Forge. We actually wrote that for that course. And then we were like, you know what? Maybe this actually works better. And we still left the book in there, but we're like, maybe if you really want a more in-depth study on music theory, just do this course instead, because songwriting doesn't really incorporate as much music theory as some people think it does. It's more of a like being in tune with your intuition, even last week we talked about what is a genius, right? And it's just somebody who's in tune with the ethereal, the muses that create ideas and make everything so just, again, intuitive for their process. And it becomes so natural for them. That's why people say, oh, this person's a genius at what they do. So that's kind of where it came from with the Greeks. And I feel like songwriting is very much just that. What is discovering your genius? And how do you become more attuned to the ideas that you have in your head? And how do you become better at translating and formulating those so that they become tangible products for you? That's a really, really core thing about Metal Songwriters Forge, and that's where we really try to emphasize there. Because like Jason said, it's not so much about how we teach you how to write songs. We teach you how to conjure these new ideas, how to tap into a mental state that allows you to focus on your creativity and making something that is actually, really worthwhile. And you actually see it through to the end too, right? You don't just create an idea and you just let it go. We want you to build upon that idea and see how far can you go with it, all the way to the very end. And we walk you through those steps where it's like writer's block, any of those obstacles that get in the way of a songwriter. So I just wanted to kind of mention that because I think it's important.
That was very important, dude. And that's actually why we created the course, because, you get hung up sometimes on riffs or lyrics. It's like, okay, I've got this really cool piece, but nothing is coming after that. Like, I need to tie this together with something. So that's what we're all about in the course. I mean, it goes through from writing verses to chorus to tying those pieces together to progressions to lyrics. We even talk about drums and bass in there. Man.
Oh yeah,
and accompanying instruments. But the going back though to what we're talking about, it's all about helping you bring out your creativity, not necessarily the way Jason thinks you should do it or Ken thinks you should do it. And we don't think you should do it anyway. We only think that you should do it your own way. But we're here to serve you, to help you bring out those ideas and maybe get some of those creative juices flowing and bring out that creativity that you already have it inside of you. You're already musicians. So that is proof. That's your evidence already that you can play some notes on your instrument or you can sing some notes. That is your just 100% gold evidence.
And I want to give a quick shout out to Nick Z, who also contributed to Metal Songwriters Forge on that drum programming section.
Oh yeah,
he has an awesome addition to which we, by the way, we upgraded Metal Songwriters Forge like a huge overhaul. There's so much new content for those who have Metal Songwriters Forge and they didn't pay a dime to get it. So honestly, we're probably going to raise the price soon because there's just so much stuff in here. But you guys need to really get on Metal Songwriters Forge if you don't have it, because there's so much good stuff. Let me tell you about Nick Z's part, right? He added drum programming for those who are totally foreign to the idea of using drums and how to create loops and how to create new ideas. And also another really cool thing that he added was this concept of cycles of inspiration, where you create a drum part, you write a riff to that, but now you have this riff and now you start to write a different drum part to your new riff, right? And constantly feeding back on all the new things that you're doing to create something that really gels together. It's a really, really awesome method. I love what he's doing. And all the things that we've added here, everything from song form, all the way down to how to elaborate on your lyrics, which is the latest update that we did to Metal Songwriters Forge. We also have, from our classic side of Metal Songwriters Forge, we analyze an entire song that we wrote specifically for that course. It's called You Are Your Master. You're probably familiar with that. And with You Are Your Master, the reason why we use that is to show you how we think, not to show you that that's the way to do it, like we've been saying, but to show you how to tie certain things together. And this is where a little bit of the music theory comes in order to translate what we're doing. But it's just to show you, hey, this is what metal songwriting can be. And this is how we approach our music. Use this if you wish to your own music. And here are some other ideas and other ways of inspiring you to do so. So Metal Songwriters Forge is really powerful. It's honestly helped me a lot in my own songwriting, because like my stuff is very, very orchestral and cinematic and storytelling. So going through Metal Songwriters Forge also helped me out to really clarify my own and sharpen my own tool set. If that really is important for me. I love the course. It's great.
I love it. I mean, I'm proud of it. That's why I guess we didn't really intend on talking about it today, but just naturally talking about, creating your own path and enjoying that process, which we're about to get into that next here. But it just kind of naturally, it just kind of flowed naturally to talk about Metal Songwriters Forge, because I mean, we're all musicians. And you want to write music, you want to write your own music, you want to write your own songs. Otherwise, it's kind of like, okay, what's the point? I know some of you listening do this as a hobby, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So, we don't want to push you into a corner and like, you better start writing music. But I think it's just a natural thing that happens, that you gravitate towards. At some point, you're like, man, I'm just tired of playing other people's stuff. What can I come up with? And that's what I want you to ask yourself. What can you come up with? Now, those of you you have the ambition, you have the goal to writing music. Again, this is just a natural flow into the conversation of really, I think, and you've said this before, trusting your own intuition. Your dad always said, follow your north, right? And trusting that intuition as you're going towards something, right? And that's your own creativity just blossoming, and follow that path. And again, we're just kind of here to kind of help serve as like a lighthouse or something like that. If you're out in the ocean on some cool Viking ship and you see the lighthouse, well, that's Ken and I, it's Metal Mastermind. So we're just kind of helping guide the way,
Yeah, totally. I think songwriting, the reason why we're harping on it so much on this episode is really because if you're talking about going your own path, I don't think there in the sense of music, I don't think there's anything more in line with that than writing your own songs. Because at the end of the day, I think like if you're doing covers of bands, and a tribute band can only go so far. If you really want to make your own statement in this world, you have to take the plunge and go original. You have to create your own stuff, and it could suck in the beginning, but that's okay, because you're in the beginning. If we're talking about someone who's seasoned songwriter versus a newbie, like there's no comparison. The songwriter who's been doing it for a long time has been crafting and perfecting their skill, and songwriting is a skill. It does require your creativity as an intuitive person, and on I think for most musicians, I don't think that's really much of a problem on being creative. I think the problem for most musicians is maybe some structure to it and how to tackle things in a methodical way for a creative venture, because that's very, very difficult, for somebody who's never necessarily dived into songwriting before. And they're like, okay, so how do I even start? Right. And it's, well, you got an idea, start with that. Right. And then maybe, you can build this one thing that might inspire this, and this will inspire that. And then you have a whole bunch of ideas. And now let's see if we can piece them together and maybe create smoother transitions between them to make it sound like a thing. Right. So it's just not going to be something where we could just say, oh, well, we could show you different types of song that are written like A, B, A, and these different types of song forms. But maybe your stuff doesn't really go in that route. And nobody should ever tell you that a song needs to have a verse, chorus, and a bridge and all this kind of stuff to be an actual successful song. That's just a formula that people have used and people have created successful songs with, but it's not the only method of doing that either, right? So we have to just remember that music is music, art is art. It is your art. So you have to do what's right for you. And again, all of what we're just saying here is trying to conjure those ideas may take a little bit of time and maturity in your process. But that's the fun of it, though, because you get to see that blossom in real time. And when you look back and you see how far you've come, you'll actually, gain some gratitude and respect for yourself in that manner. And that will boost your confidence in songwriting too. So for those of you who are feeling like maybe you're just not there quite yet, just hang in there, just keep going. That's the only way you fail in this is if you just quit. So if you don't quit, you'll eventually make it to the other side where you'll start really writing stuff that you're really proud of. And I have no doubt that you will, especially if you're going through Metal Mastermind for that. So we have every confidence that our stuff is going to help you get there.
And on that note, let's talk about, enjoying the process, enjoying the journey. I've looked back at life and I struggle with this sometimes now. It's like I'm at a certain place in life at a certain level as a musician. This album, I want it to be something. And we look at that end result a lot of times and like, I want that result. But we have to make sure that we're enjoying the process of getting to that result and not saying, well, I'm just going to be upset or stressed out until I get that result. No, instead, choose, and it's a choice that we have to make, right? Choose to enjoy that journey, enjoy the process of getting to that result. And I think that result will show itself a lot sooner, a lot faster. And even if it doesn't, well, why does it matter? You're having a good time along the way. There are some things where I saw the result and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I want to, and I've given this example on my channel and maybe even on here before, but Ken and I both, we love craft beer. So I'm like, hey, maybe I'll brew my own beer. Well, I got a textbook and I started reading through it. I'm like, okay, all this cleaning, this, that, disinfecting. I'm like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to enjoy the process. I'm just going to be a taster, So, and you're a musician, so you already know you enjoy playing music. That's the thing, right? And I think you'll really love, and most of you writing songs right now, it. Like, I love the process. It can be frustrating at times, when you get stumped, which again, that's why we created this course. But even if you're new to songwriting, there can be some times of frustration, but don't give up, plow through that, but just make yourself enjoy the process. Just enjoy every moment. If you came up with a new riff, even if it's just a simple 3-chord progression, be proud of that, right? Because if you're not proud of that, the next time you go to start writing, you may have trouble. You know what I mean? You may look at this whole thing like, oh, this is just not for me. Allow yourself to enjoy every step of that process and just celebrate those little wins along the way.
Yeah, nothing in life is going to be, floating on cloud 9 forever. So you have to understand that if this is something that you want to do, that of course there's going to be some hardship along with it. Right? Nobody in their right mind would ever do music because it's the best way to make money. Right?
Oh my God! Yeah.
So that's the whole thing that we're talking about, right? If you're still here because your parents said, "Hey, you shouldn't do music, and you're like, nah, screw you, I want to do music, then you already have what it takes, because you already have the tenacity to continue to do what it is that you enjoy doing. So don't give up here. Don't give up when you come to between a rock and a hard place on writing a song. That's part of the process, you know? And if it's what you really want to do, you'll find a way to continue to make it happen, right? And that's important. And honestly, Jason, I'm really glad you brought that up, because the idea of knowing what it is that you want and paying attention to that resistance, right? Of like maybe who's telling you what you should be doing, or the feeling inside, whether or not you're actually passionate about what you do, right? You have to pay attention to that little inner voice. It's going to guide you in a way towards what you really want out of life. So, and if music is what it is that you want to do, then you need to make sure that you feed that voice its nutrition, right? If you're getting that itch where, you know, you have to go out and you have to play, then you got to find a way to make it happen. Otherwise, you're just going to keep living on, and you're going to degrade over time. And it's not a quick process. It's a slow process. It eats away at you over time. So you gotta unleash the beast, so to say.
You know, I know sometimes you get frustrated, because I get frustrated songwriting sometimes. I'm writing lyrics right now, and those don't just magically appear. And of course, I'm taking my own advice and taking advice through our course, and that's helping. But there are times when maybe you do need to just, you know, you guitar players, you know what? I'm just going to take 20 minutes and I'm just going to jam. I'm just going to play. I don't care. I'm not even going to try to write anything. I'm just going to jam and just let that all out. Now, oftentimes you'll come up with some really cool stuff just jamming and noodling around, and like, oh, okay. And sometimes I think is when you step back a little bit and maybe not take it so serious. Sometimes we can get into our own heads and become our own worst enemy. And you have to release that. Just release it and just throw down and jam. Just come up with something. Just go where there's fingers tell you to go, you know, whether you're a bass player, guitar player, drummer, even singing. If you're a vocalist, you know, just start singing some words and phrases. It doesn't even have to make sense. Just use your voice, right? And maybe write some of this down along the way. After you do that, you'll be surprised on when you kind of back off the seriousness that we can allow to take us over when you're songwriting. Back off of that a little bit and just have fun. Just, you know, belt those notes out, play those notes, play some chords, some riffs, and just release it. If you get something out of it, great. It's not really your intent at that time. You're taking a breather. You're just jamming, right? And then go back to the process. But again, you might write something really cool in that little jam session too.
Yeah. And also I really like the analogy of knowing what season you're in with your process too, which is to say that if you're in and when I say season, I don't mean like, you know, fall or winter, or, you know, I'm talking about like, are you in a songwriting season, or are you in a, you know, a promotional season, a marketing season for your music, or, you know, are you in the production season of your music? You know, these types of things, it's natural to think that if you're not constantly writing a new song, that you're failing at it. And that's just simply not true, because honestly, creating a song from start to end also includes the fact that you want to release it and let the world hear it too. And that's an important step that should not be taken lightly. And you should be focused on that step when you get there. I tell my students all the time, because they're like, oh, you know, I have a bunch of students here in New York City, and they tell me, how do you know how to balance, right, the concept of always writing new material and then like focusing on marketing, because it seems like it's impossible to do all at the same time. And I tell them, oh yeah, it kind of is. Yeah. you kind of have to say, all right, today, this is not what I'm working on. I'm not working on making new music, because if I keep staying in the space of making new music, I may never finish the ones that I already started. So you have to say, okay, out of the things that I made, these are the things that I want to see till the end. And let me go ahead and commit to that. And when you get through that process and you're finally on the other side, you have your own album and you're like, wow, that's great. And then of course, as an artist, you grow, you evolve, right? And you look at your first album and you're like, I could do better than that.
Yeah.
And then you go ahead and you start writing a new album, right? And this process always repeats, and it's a cycle of repetition, but it's always it really is outlining your journey as a songwriter, as an artist, as a performer, and all these things. And I'm sure, Jason, you have what, 5?
Coming up on 5. Yeah, I've got one more. I've got Overcome. That's the new album's going to be coming out real soon. I've got to finish it. And what I like what you're saying, Ken, because basically what you're saying is, focus on one thing at a time. It doesn't mean you can't schedule time to work on, multiple things throughout the week, especially if you're doing this full time. But, I find that right now I am focused on finishing this album, and it's been difficult because, we started Metal Mastermind. So I focused on guitar courses and all the marketing. And, guys, Metal Mastermind is more than just, going to your course. We have an entire platform, man. So, we've got the advertising and marketing that comes with that, which if you're a business is something you have to do. You have to let people know about what your product is, right? And thank you guys for all the support, by the way. We really appreciate it. But we've got YouTube videos out there. We've got blogs that, we've spent a lot of effort in building this thing. So I put my album on hold 2 years ago. It's been like a rough draft with the drums that Cameron Fleury recorded for me in his studio in Canada. It's been done for 2 years now. And I'm just now getting around to touching things up. I have a potential sponsorship coming up, so I'm going to re-record the guitar tracks with that sponsored product. I'm hoping it comes in this week or next because I need to get to it, but I'm still writing lyrics. And what I've done though, Ken, is I've given myself a push. I have already talked to the big guitar store here in Tampa, Replay Guitar Exchange, about holding a workshop, a guitar clinic there in August. And of course I'm going to use that to promote my new album. So I need to be done with my album by at least like mid-July, So I put myself, sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you have to put it, or me anyway, right? I don't want to say this goes for everyone, but me, I found that I need to sometimes put my back up against the wall and give myself that deadline. And I'm like, okay, I have to do this now.
Hey man, you and me both. Like, I had to put a bit of a hold on my own music to make Metal Mastermind a thing too. So you and I, we have this, we have a very similar outlook on what's important to make something happen in life. And that's one of the reasons why we really work so well. And when we start talking about our music to our audience on Metal Mastermind, I feel it's important that they understand what it took to get this thing off the ground, because making an entire platform, which is what it is, like you said, it's a hub. Our Discord community is really, really active. I love all the people that I see that are talking there. Shout out to Emily and Bryden, our moderators on the Discord. You guys are doing a fantastic job. But we have a community of people there. We have our own merchandise shop. We have a course platform. We have coaches. We have a whole entire platform for educating the modern metal musician. That was no small feat. It took a lot of attention. And when I was just talking about seasons, right? Yeah. We were in the season of creating this business, and we weren't in the season necessarily of developing our music. Our music had to really be put a little bit on the back burner in order for us to really focus on getting this off the ground. And you know what? That's okay, because it was worth it. It was worth to do what we're doing. And honestly, Jason, right, we don't feel bad about it because it all feeds back into what we're working on in the first place. Now we have this community of people that come together here on one platform, and it's called Metal Mastermind. And we are able to work on our music and be fueled by that energy too. And it's almost in a way a renewed sense, because now it's not like you're just doing this on your own. Honestly, I feel very much that Metal Mastermind is behind me 100% on my own project too. And when it all ties in together, and it's kind of, I almost look at it for our musical brands, it's a sister brand to our own music. And I want everybody here to know that everything that we do has the intention of making music better for for the modern musician. We are so passionate about making music better in this day and age. We want you to be trendsetters. We want you to create your own sound. It's one of the biggest frustrations that we felt in the music industry today, that so many people have been, copy pasting everything else, and no one's really creating new ideas. And you've maybe even seen, videos on YouTube of other people who are also frustrated about this fact. And that's a big reason why we're doing what we're doing. There's not enough content to go around to teach people how to increase their skill set in a way that defines them in the metal community. That's very specific why we made this platform for you guys. So, when it comes to all of that and, your music, just know, like, if you're in a season where you got to focus on other things that are important in life, family, business, like all of that stuff is really important, and everything needs to be in balance with that. So don't feel like because things are taking a long time for you to do what you're doing in your own musical career, guess what? It takes everybody a long time to do what they're doing in this musical career. You want to do the indie musician route? Minimum commitment is 10 years. It's 10 years. It's not going to be, hey, well, let's show you this quick thing to get you over to the other side, and now you're going to have 1 million subscribers and all this. That does not happen. It does not happen in the first 10 years. It happens maybe after, 15, 20 years of doing this stuff consistently, if you keep at it, but you have to keep at it. And if you're going to keep at it, you have to enjoy that process. You have to do something that you're really passionate about. Otherwise, people can smell it a mile away that this is not something for you. Okay. That's the one thing that I feel like everybody in this world has, is a really good, like, bullcrap detector, right?
Yep. No, it's funny you mentioned that though, man. Like, you guys know I play live acoustic shows on the side. Like, I just finished 3 days in a row of acoustic shows, and but I don't play crowd favorites because, although there's a lot of music I like, there's a lot of music I don't. And, I've only had it requested a few times. Someone asked me to play Sweet Caroline, and I just don't like that song. And I'm like, sorry, I don't know it. Sorry. I've got something close to it. And, hope you like that, which it's nothing close to that, but I just say that. There's just certain, and nothing against people that like that song. If you like it, great. But there's just certain songs I won't play. So I stick to the 80s. I play what I enjoy playing, because if I don't enjoy it, you're going to know it. People are going to know that, okay, that person is just playing this to appease the crowd. And I'm not very good at hiding that. If I don't enjoy something, I just won't do it, So that's a very good point. And on that note, guys, like, when you're writing your music, make sure that you're not following what you think someone's opinion may be of you and what you're going to put out there. Sometimes, guys, and hopefully this makes sense, but sometimes we will conjure up this idea of what we think people will think, and it's not even real, right? And maybe some of it might be, maybe because, people love to just comment. They love to just put negative stuff out there. But sometimes we have this thought that, okay, well, these people will have this opinion if I put this out there. And it's not even real, guys. So just when that thought comes in, shut it down immediately. Get that idea, get that garbage the hell out of your head. It does not belong there. And focus on what you know deep down that you want to create. Okay, it doesn't need to sound like this, doesn't need to sound like that. If you have a quote unquote limited vocal range, right? I'm not a super high singer. Well, embrace that. Elizabeth, our vocal coach, talked about that a couple podcasts ago. Embrace that. That's you. That's who you are. If you play a certain way, if you shred, if you don't shred, well, guess what? It is okay. Be authentic. So we want to encourage you just to put your original stuff out there. Don't worry about what people are going to think, because what you're creating is unique to you. And it's something that's going to be unique to the world.
Yeah, 100%. And I have a quote that I heard. Do you know the band Rival Sons, Jason?
I've heard of them, dude. I think I've heard of them
Yes.
from you.
So I saw them one time in the Mercury Lounge here in New York City, and
Oh, cool.
he said this one. The singer said this one quote that was really really fantastic, and he said, "I love you, but I'm not your freaking iPod."
Cool, dude. Awesome. I love it.
You know, so next time somebody asks you to play Sweet
Yeah.
Caroline, it's like, "I love you, but I'm not your freaking iPod."
No, there's just certain songs I won't play, dude. Yeah, no, I won't
You
play
know?
Brown Eyed Girl. I won't play Sweet Caroline, and I won't play, what's the other song that everybody wants to hear? The Jimmy Buffett song,
Oh, was it like
Margaritaville.
Margaritaville? Yeah.
Yeah, and like if you want to hear those songs, you can go to any bar, any place, and you're gonna hear it because that's just what you know. And I get it. I'm like nothing against someone who plays that. I just don't like the songs, and that's why I up into the era of music that I like the most if I'm going to be playing it out like that. So I play 80s rock, 80s pop, and I even play some hair band stuff. I'll venture into the early 90s. I even will play like Nothing Else Matters sometimes. People love that. I just posted that on my Facebook from yesterday's show. One of my friends and followers got a clip. And I don't know. I've got a Maiden cover and a Dio cover. I'll venture into that territory because I love that. But again, it all goes back to I just do what I enjoy. I play what I enjoy. You know, this whole
Yeah.
notion that you got to do stuff you don't like to make a living. Maybe you don't. Maybe you just do what you do and go all in on yourself.
I love that. Honestly, couldn't have said it any better.
Well, on that note, guys, we're going to wrap things up here. So just want to say I appreciate you for tuning into Metal Mastermind here. And Ken, I love what we're doing, man. What we're doing is awesome.
Same here, man.
We love the process of doing this, you know.
We love the process of doing this, and I couldn't have asked for a better partner. So much love to you, brother.
Same here, brother. Same here, man. Guys, on a quick note, be sure to go to metalmastermind.com. Check out our courses. That is what we're all about, is really just helping you, giving you value. So check that out. Remember to check out Metal Songwriters Forge if you don't have it. We'll see you on the next video or podcast or the next whatever we put out there, which will be soon. As always, create your own sound.